and I got more than that.
Another day one. Monday, another day one. Start every single day as if it was your first day, and you'll be successful.
Signature!
Good morning, Signature Real Estate Group, and welcome to another one of our virtual sales meetings. Just a reminder that each week we'll be in the Spanish Ridge or Green Valley office for in-person meetings, but on the 5th week of the month when it actually happens, I think it happens once every 3 months, we will have a virtual sales meeting for you guys that you can enjoy from anywhere. We've made it through another summer here in Las Vegas at those triple-digit temperatures, but I'm so proud of all of you that are out there in the marketplace killing it and making Signature the great company that it is. Thanks to our partnership with the Mike Ferry organization, we have Mike D here with us today. Mike, thank you so much for joining us. Mike is going to be talking about the low inventory shortages that we're seeing and giving you some great tips and ideas on how to overcome that and make your business what it needs to be. Mike, thanks so much, and thank you for being here. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Chris, for having me on. I want to thank Chris and Brandon for having me on because this is not something that a lot of brokers do. Just so you guys know, there's maybe about 70 to 75 brokers nationwide who are paying the Mike Ferry organization for this kind of a training. So you guys should be thanking your brokers right now because this is not something that a lot of brokers are willing to do. So the purpose of me coming on today is I wanted to talk a little bit about what do we do with the low inventory challenge. If you've been paying attention to the numbers in the MLS, we are seeing that the challenges in the market are getting a little more difficult to deal with. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to talk about the 5 reasons why inventory is low. What you're going to notice when I tell you that is that 2 of them you absolutely can't control, but 3 of them, it's really our fault as real estate agents. And I'll break those down for you. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you the solutions, what you can do in order to start increasing your own personal inventory. Okay? So with that, let's cut the fluff and just jump right in. So I wanted to first, if you are taking notes, I want you to write down the 5 reasons why inventory is down. And starting with reason number 1, I want you to write down the post-pandemic buyers are gone. The post-pandemic buyers are gone. So we all saw it happen during the pandemic. There was just this big change that happened with people mentally. It was very interesting to watch. You had people who felt confined where they were because we were all on lockdown for so long. It caused a lot of people to start thinking very seriously about the life decisions they had made up to that point. Tons of people started just picking up and moving. We saw here in Vegas a ton of people, a big influx to Vegas. We saw a bunch of people move out of Nevada and move to rural states. I had about, 10 or 15 friends that all moved somewhere in the rural Midwest. Whereas at the same time, I had probably about 30 or 40 new neighbors coming in from California. It's a very interesting time. From the articles that I've read, experts estimate there's been roughly, not just in Vegas, but nationwide, somewhere between 500,000 to 3 million. Some estimates are as high as 3 million new buyers in the market because of the pandemic. Okay, what that means is there were so many changes happening that there was just this big emotional wave of people saying, I'm done with this life and I'm moving on to another one. It was very strange. We saw the same thing happen in the job market. I'm sure that Chris and Brandon can attest to this. There was a huge influx of real estate agents, for one. 2, there was this big mass exodus of people walking away from regular jobs. So everything was just kind of reshaping and changing during that time. Well, when that happened, there was a bunch of brand new buyers buying up a lot of the excess inventory that we had. So where we had a 2, 3, or 4 month supply of homes, that dropped down dramatically, where I remember at one point here in Vegas, we were down to like a 7 or 8 day inventory. It was moving that quickly. And then things have changed, which I'm going to go to point number 2, the reason why inventory is down. I want you to write down the word interest rates. Interest rates. So the post-pandemic buyers are gone. A lot of those buyers were people who already owned a home and wanted to change. They wanted to upgrade. So those people were putting homes on the market, but then going up and buying a home, plus an influx of new buyers coming in, first-time home buyers. Well, when interest rates changed, that affected the sellers just as much as it did the buyers. There's a large group of people every year nationwide who think to themselves, I'd like to upgrade or I'd like to downgrade for whatever various reasons that they have. Those people started second guessing whether they were going to upgrade or downgrade because they had bought their home. There was a large group of people who had bought their home when the market had crashed or was down, and they bought their home for a song and a dance. That's when I bought my home. I bought my home for, I think it was $166,000 was what I ended up paying for the whole thing, and then that was back in 2011. You cannot find a house for $166,000 anymore. And the change that's happened since then is the prices have gone up significantly, obviously, as we've seen. But when interest rates came up, a lot of the sellers who got into a 2 or 3% mortgage, for them to sell their home, take the equity, put it into the next home, their payment is going to be significantly impacted because of the change in interest rates, and they won't be able to afford the payment. I read a couple of interesting statistics recently. In 2019, the average American salary for a single person, for one person, was $56,000 a year in 2019. And the average home sale price nationwide was $288,000. Fast forward till today. Now, back then, the average interest rate was like 3.5% or something like that. We fast forward till today. The average home sale price in the U.S. is $488,000. The average interest rate is somewhere in the sevens, in the low sevens, but the average income is still $56,000 per year. So the interest rate change made such a big impact on the monthly payment that all the people who would have put their home up for sale to buy the next home are second guessing that. I have a belief that that's going to come back to normal over time, but it's just not going to be fixing itself anytime soon. So those are the two reasons that we as real estate agents, we can't control. We can't control the emotional uproar that happened during the pandemic, and we can't control the interest rates. The Fed controls that, not us. But there are three additional things that have been happening over the course of the last several years. And these three things happen because of real estate agents. So for the 5 reasons that inventory is down, I want you to write down for reason number 3, I want you to write down team building. Team building. So it is normal for a real estate agent to start growing once they become good at the business. And they start listing 10, 20, or even 30, 40, or 50 properties a year. And the people who are listing that much, if you've ever listed a lot of property before, you know it takes a lot of time. Once you start getting to 25, 30 deals, you're barely able to handle all the file work. So they have to bring on an assistant, or they have to bring on a TC or someone who's going to handle all the file work for them. Well, what's been happening lately is instead of bringing on admin so that the agent becomes more productive, a lot of real estate agents have thought to themselves that they don't want to do the work, to go out and list 25, 30, 40, 50 homes a year. And so what they are doing is bringing on a showing agent or 2, or sometimes 3, or 4, or 5. And sometimes they are getting a little out of control. And what they're doing is training real estate agents to show buyers rather than go out and list property. And there's already this mentality in the real estate industry that our job is just to show buyers around. Folks, buyers are only 50% of the transactions out there. The other half is sellers. Now, here's the challenge with that, is you're taking a good listing agent, and as they're bringing on more team members, and as the team begins to grow, the responsibility of that once used to be a listing agent starts to grow as well. They no longer have the time to go out and find new listings because they are busy managing the agents they've brought on. And there's good and there's bad to it. It means there's less of the quote unquote the sales grind, but there's more and more of a management grind. There's more and more challenges when it comes to managing people. I know that Chris and Brandon can attest to that there are a lot of challenges when it comes to managing people. Now, the problem is a lot of team leaders are not trained leaders. So they're not really training their people on how to go out and find new business. Instead, they're buying business and handing it to them and trying to help them convert it. Well, while all that's fine and transactions are being done, the challenge with that is that agent who used to list 20, 30, 40, 50 properties a year is no longer going out and listing those properties because they're so busy managing the team. That has had a massive reduction in inventory. We've been seeing this fad of team building growing and growing and growing over the last 5 or 6 years. And it's in my opinion, I think it's hurting the industry more than anything else, because if you're not being trained on how to list and sell property, it's really tough to last a long time in this business. That leads me to reason number 4. A lot of agents are choosing to join some of these teams because in reason number 4, I want you to write down, agents don't want to prospect. Yes, this is the Mike Ferry organization, so we bring up prospecting. Okay, now what I mean by that is there's a lot of real estate agents out there who just don't like it, which, blinding, flashing light of the obvious, I think that's most of us. I don't care how productive you are, most of us don't like prospecting. That's okay. The people who really like to prospect, I think they're a little sick in the head because it's just not that much fun. At the same time, you have to put things into perspective for a minute. Okay? What I have in my hand here is what everybody is trying to use to get business right now. They're putting this on a tripod and filming themselves, which that's not a bad thing. But the problem is what are the results that we are getting from that? What are the actual results? If you record a video and you put it out on social media, who is seeing it? Let's say that you quote unquote go viral. Who is seeing the video? Well, for a lot of people, they feel it's great exposure. Lots of people get to see them, and there's truth to that. Who are the ones responding? If I have a video that goes viral today, people all over the planet are going to see it. People in Bangladesh are going to see it. People in Abu Dhabi are going to see it. People in Jacksonville are going to see it. But people all over the world are going to see it. Here's the question. How many of those people have a property to list in Las Vegas? That's the question you got to ask yourself. For this reason, the majority of business that comes from social media is either buyers or renters. By majority, I mean close to about 98% of the business that's coming in from social media is a buyer or a renter. Because we're getting exposed to people outside of Las Vegas. Those people, for the most part, don't own property in Las Vegas. Therefore, their inquiry is going to be about moving to Las Vegas, not selling a property here. I want you to carefully consider this thought. And you may want to write it down this way. If I want to list more property, I must speak to home owners. A lot of people aren't understanding this concept right now. There's a lot of people, again, trying to become TikTok or Instagram famous, which good for them if they want to do that. But the challenge that creates is they're not speaking to the people who have property to list. They're speaking to everyone else. Last year, I went to a Century 21 conference. It was here in Las Vegas over at the convention center, same place where Mike Ferry did the Superstar Retreat. And there was a guy doing a talk saying how I earned over $1 million last year on social media. I got to be honest, piqued my interest. Guy said he was listing a little over 70 properties a year. He's in the San Diego area. His price point's like 1.2, 1.4 million, somewhere between there. And as I was listening to his talk, there was a couple of things he left out of the title. For example, he has a team of 20 people making outbound phone calls for him, calling homeowners. That's where he's getting the majority of listings from. He maybe took 4 listings because of social media. He had a video that went viral, got millions of views. The video, in my opinion, was a little silly. It was him at an open house, dancing, doing the flossing thing. I don't even know how to do that. But he was doing that on the homeowner's bed, and that went viral. And so he's got all these followers and all these viewers and stuff, which good for him. It's good exposure. But it only led to 3 or 4 listings over the course of the last 2 years. So consider that for a second. Is that really helping you build your inventory? The majority of the business he was getting was from his 20 prospectors, at least on the listing side. On the buyer side, sure, he got a bunch of buyers from going viral. And again, the question is, how do we solve the inventory problem? You don't solve the inventory problem by finding new buyers. That's not how you solve the inventory problem. You solve the inventory problem by finding new sellers, and you can't find new sellers unless you're talking to people who have something to sell. It starts to make a little more sense when you put it into perspective. The other thing I found out is that with all the social media exposure, I was trying to do the math on how much money this guy was making and why he only made $1 million when his average sales price, or his average commission if he was taking 3%, should have been somewhere around $35,000 per check, $30,000 to $35,000. I mean, you don't have to do that many deals to get to $1 million if your average check is $30,000 to $35,000. I mean, that's what? 30 transactions, 35 transactions, but he had to do over 70 to get there. Which means, how much of his commission did he cut? So he has this huge team prospecting, he's doing his social media, and he's cutting his commission. And when you start doing the math, in order to fit his team, he has to rent his own building. There's a lot of expenses that come into this. All that to not make as much money if he would just prospect. Folks, I want you to think about this for a second. If you just spoke to enough people every day, are you accidentally going to find somebody who wants to list their home for sale? It's a fact. Somebody out there wants to list. If you look at the MLS, are there new listings every day? Someone spoke to them. So the question is, why not you? Why not you speak to those people? A lot of people, the reason why they don't prospect is the couple of main reasons is A, they don't know where to find the listings, which I'm going to give you the answer for that right now. B, they don't know what to say, which is totally normal. Or C, they might be a little afraid of the embarrassment, the rejection, or whatever it is that they might be getting. That's all that is. It's valid. It's normal. To help you, the Mike Ferry organization has scripts online for free, all the prospecting scripts. What I'm going to do for you is tell you the places where you're most likely to find a listing. A number of years ago, we interviewed 75 agents who were doing a little over 100 transactions a year. And we put together this report that said every possible way to find a listing. It's online for free. You can go download it on mikeferry.com for free. Now, we did this report and we found 61 different ways that all of these top producers took listings. When we combined them all, it was 61 different ways to find a listing. Now I'm going to tell you the ways that generated the most listings. The number one way was by talking to the people they know. Talking to their past clients, talking to their sphere. That was the number one way. If you talk to that group of people, you are bound to find a listing at some point. You will. But what we're talking about is actual dialogue, not just sending out mailers and cards and stuff. I mean, think about this for a second. For some of you that have been in the business a long time, How many of you have found out that somebody you know listed with someone else, even though you were already sending them cards and mailers and emails and newsletters and all that stuff? That's what you have to consider, is the actual dialogue is what creates the listings. Get into dialogue with these people. What we found from a study from the National Association of Realtors is that over 1/3 of every listing taken nationwide came from realtors talking to people they know. Think about that for a second. Over 1/3. There's 61 different ways that we found, and over 33% of the business came from one of those 61 sources. The number 2 way we found was speaking to expireds, cancels, or withdrawals. Withdrawals, not unconditional, obviously. Expireds, withdrawals, and cancels. So these are people who put their home up for sale. They signed a contract with a real estate agent. They agreed to pay a commission. What is the likelihood that some of them would consider relisting with a better agent? It's a pretty good likelihood. Now, I'm going to be brutally honest here. There's a lot of them that shouldn't have listed in the first place. They were unrealistic about the price. They were unrealistic about their expectations. Sure. But in that group, what's the likelihood that you're going to find someone who does need to get the home sold? It's pretty good. You are going to find someone. It's not going to be everyone you talk to. It may only be 1 out of like 50. But folks, do the math. You could talk to 50 people in a day if you just spent, 6 hours. Could you imagine if you spent 6 hours calling people who have a high likelihood and you could take a listing that day? Folks, that's the possibility. Okay, the number 3 source I want you to write down is for sale by owners. Again, look at the likelihood. These are people who are trying to sell their home. If someone's actively trying to sell their home, what is the likelihood that they're going to list with an agent at some point? Chances are very high. Last number I looked at, and this was a few months old, I know that this number fluctuates every now and then, was that 93% of for sale by owners that actually did sell their home had to list with an agent. Okay, so there's a bunch of for sale by owners out there who they're not going to list with an agent because they're too cheap. I get it. There's going to be a bunch of them out there who are putting it up there and hoping for the best, and they're not going to list no matter what. Okay, that's fine. But there's that number in there that actually needs to sell, and at some point, they're going to have to work with an agent. Go talk to them. Go start the relationship. You start doing that now when they're ready to list, they may be calling you. The number 4 and the number 5, we kind of lump together. A lot of people call this circle prospecting. What we call it at the Mike Ferry organization is just listed and just sold. We kind of separate it this way because in our scripts, we have 2 slightly different approaches to the homeowners. But here's what we found. Home goes on sale. In a 500 home radius around that listed home, there's like 4 or 5 neighbors who are also going to list at some point soon. Think about it. Have you ever held an open house and all the neighbors come by and check it out? Why? Why do they come and look at it? Well, the main reason why is because there's a number of them who are considering moving. And we all know what they do. They look at the home, they're thinking to themselves, oh, they made some bad choices here. Our home is much better. Right? They all do that. So the question is, why not talk to all the neighbors? Why not? Imagine for a moment you spoke to all of the neighbors and you found just a couple of people who want to list and sell. Would it be worth it? That's essentially what we're asking you to do, is just go talk to the neighbors. You don't have to like hard press them and say, I'll list your home. You don't do that. You just go and have a casual conversation with them. Feel them out. See who's looking to list, see who's looking to sell. You will find people. If nothing else, you'll find some referrals from it, which, who couldn't use a couple more referrals, right? So we recommend these places, and we found that NAR backs it up. The NAR data backs it up. Of those of all the sources, like I said, the 61 different sources that we found if you combine those 5 sources together, it's almost 68% of all the business done nationwide as a listing agent. Those 5 sources, 68% of the business, which means there's another 56 sources that are splitting up the remainder. And for some reason, those are the sources that most agents focus on. The truth is, it's because those are much easier, there's much less rejection, there's much less emotion. You can just send something out and wait. Or you can post a video and wait. Or you can do some SEO and wait. There's a variety of different ways to do it, but we found that those 5 generate the most listings. So if you really are trying to list property, those are the places you should go. Reason number 5 for low inventory. This is a big one. I want you to write down, too many agents neglected their database. Too many agents neglected their database. Again, that's a big issue. Like I said, over a third of all the business done nationwide as a listing agent, over a third, came from the database. A lot of agents don't talk to their database enough. They send them things, but they don't talk to them. Folks, how do you keep a really strong relationship with somebody if you don't talk to them? Sure, you can send them your picture, or you can send them a gift, or you can send them other stuff. Does that really keep the relationship? Or is that something they may just throw away later? Ask yourself a question. Do you ever get junk mail? What do you do with it? Do you ever get somebody spamming your email? What do you do with it? As I'm saying that, I'm getting a spam email. So you start to ask yourself, if that's generally what people do, how do I stand out? The best way to stand out is be a resource for them. Be there for them. I would want to challenge all of you guys, if you're not already doing this, call everybody you know. Past client, sphere, doesn't matter. Everybody you know in the next 30 days. And just let them know you want to be their real estate resource. Now, a lot of people hear that and they think, oh, they're just begging for referrals, which, yes, we want the referrals, don't get me wrong. And you have to take it a step further. Say, if you need anything, you need a good landscaper, let me know. You need a good roofer, let me know. You need someone to do the pool service, let me know. Take that little extra step. If something is going on in their life, there's something going on like they need to have a tree pulled, HOA just came out with a new rule, which we know that happens every now and then. They have something like that, and they're not thinking of you first, the relationship isn't as solid as it needs to be. We need to start creating that relationship with all the people in our database that any real estate issue they have, they want to think of you first. They're not going to do that if all they're doing is getting mailers from you, or if all they're doing is getting a text from you every now and then, or if all they're doing is getting a newsletter in their email. They are going to do that, however, if every time you talk to them, you check in and see how they're doing. You bring them a little bit of real estate value. You ask them if there's anything you can do to help them. Then they will start to change that mindset. And anytime they hear the words real estate, they start thinking about you. When the pandemic hit, the first thing Mike Ferry did is he told all of us, talk to your database. Talk to them all right now. Don't try and get a referral. Don't try and sell them anything. Just call them, ask if they're okay. And he told us to do that. And you know what? For the first couple of months, for the first month that was going on, there were no changes. Nothing was happening. We were just being there for the people that we knew. But we had that big wave of people who were stuck at home for 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks and started rethinking their life, which caused a ton of those people to reach out to the agents they had been speaking to and saying, I think we're going to make a move. All this is too much. We need to change. Which led to the absolute frenzy that we saw between 2020 and then halfway through 2022, where the prices were skyrocketing, inventory was at record lows, homes were being sold for way more than they should have been sold for. We saw all of that happening at once. One of the reasons why that happened is because there was a lot of good agents speaking directly to the people that they needed to help, speaking to their databases. Now, when I say that, I mean, at Mike Ferry, we track the results of all of our coaching clients, and we saw an insane spike in a lot of our agents' careers. An insane spike. We saw people who were normally making $200,000-$300,000, which, don't get me wrong, it's a good living, but they went from $200,000-$300,000 to $800,000, $900,000 almost overnight, mostly coming from their database. Now, it is normal that somebody who lists 25, 30 plus homes per year is going to get 50% of that business from their database, or sometimes even more than that. That's normal. Those are the agents who are talking to their database regularly. So the question you got to ask yourself is, are you talking to them enough? Or do you just kind of hope they're going to respond to something you're sending out? So those are the 5 reasons why that inventory is down. Like I said, if you take a look at the first 2, you look at the post-pandemic and all the big influx that happened, we had no control over that. You look at interest rates changing, we have no control over that. But we do have control over whether we choose to become a productive listing agent or just hire a bunch of people to be on a team with us. We do have a choice whether we want to prospect or not. Interesting, one more side note about the prospecting. I read a stat somewhere, I don't know how to verify this, but the stat said that 396 million leads were sold to real estate agents by Zillow last year. 392 million, but only 6.2 million home sales occurred. It's a pretty big deficit there. Okay, and then the other reason is that we neglected our databases. If you look at those few reasons, those are on us. That's our fault. So the question is, what is the solution? How do we change this? How do we right the ship? How do we turn this franchise around, right? So I want you to write down the 2 solutions are. The first one, change your mindset about your business. Change your mindset about your business. Okay? You're no longer a guy who just wants to stick people in the back of the car and drive them around. That's not who you are. You need to change the way you're operating, change the way you're doing things. And what I mean is start looking for listings versus just looking for business. The great author Wayne Dyer used to say, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So ask yourself, how are you looking at the business? Do you see yourself as someone who could list 1, 2, 3, 4 properties a month? Do you see yourself as someone who could do that? Or do you have too much self-doubt? Do you not know what to do? Do you find reasons why you can't list a lot of property? Change the mindset and everything else will follow. Well, then how do we change the mindset? Solution number 2, I want you to write down, improve your skills. Improve your skills. If you improve your skills, the mindset will follow. Think about this for a second. I want you to imagine that it doesn't matter what is happening in the real estate market. You always know what to do. You always know what to say. You always know where to find a listing. And you know you can do that every day because your skills dictate that. Let me give you an idea of what that means. So going back to one of the things I said earlier about calling just listeds and just solds, okay? Now, I have trained a lot of brand new agents in the industry who have had no experience in sales, no experience in anything. And I've helped and tracked and seen what happens if they just talk to enough people. So if you take the average new agent who has no experience, who has no brains whatsoever, nothing, and you just have them talk to just listed, just solds, not even their database or anything else. It typically takes them about 1,000 contacts or 1,000 conversations with people they don't know to find one transaction. That sounds like a lot. So let's break that down. If you break down 1,000 contacts, that's like 45 or 46 a day. Okay, you could do that. 45 or 46 a day. That's roughly about 5 hours of work. How many hours in the day do you normally work? It's interesting, right? Most agents, they don't know the answer to that question. Well, we're talking about 5 hours of just talking to people. Isn't that the job? So here's what will happen is they'll speak to 1,000 people. That's a lot of people. That'll turn into, listen to this big drop. From 1,000, we'll get 10 or 20 who are interested. 10 or 20 out of 1,000. Out of that 10 or 20 that are interested, 5 or 10 will actually set an appointment. Somewhere between 5 and 10. Okay? Well, if you're following the Mike Ferry system, we tell you to call all the people who have an appointment with you and to ask a series of questions to determine whether they are even ready to move or not. If it's going to be something that happens now or if they're thinking 3-4 years down the road. So now let's think about this. So if we take that and we disqualify the people who are not ready, our 5 or 10 appointments turn into maybe 3 or 5, maybe. Somewhere between 3 and 5 good appointments. Now again, if you have no skill, you're not experienced or anything, and you go on 3 to 5 listing appointments, you'll get 1. That's pretty normal. But look at the rejection that comes with that. That means 999 people are going to tell you no before you get that 1. But could you do that every month? Average commission here in Vegas, if you're selling a $400,000 home, is pretty good. So why not just do that once a month? Talk to enough people and find someone on accident. Now, here's what happens if you improve your skills. Let's take the exact same thing and break it down if you improve your skills. Just because your skills are good, it doesn't mean you're going to find more people who are interested. It just means you're going to convert more of the ones who are. Here's what I mean. A skilled salesperson, they're going to talk to that same group of 1,000 people. They're going to find the same group of 10 or 20. Then that group of 10 or 20 is going to boil down to the same 5 or 10 who are going to set an appointment, which is going to boil down to the same 3 to 5 who are ready. But the difference is the one who has skills, instead of taking 1 listing, is going to take 3, 4, or 5 listings. Think about that for a second. Imagine you could take 3, 4, or 5 listings every month. This is a reality for a lot of the clients that we train at Mike Ferry. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of pain and suffering to get good at this, but it happens. Every day there's somebody that's Mike Ferry trained who's taking another listing. Every day there are hundreds of Mike Ferry trained agents who are taking another listing. It's very interesting. So the question is how do we improve our skills so we can improve the conversion ratio so much? What are the skills we need to improve? I wrote down what I think are the 9 most important skills for you to improve if you want to start growing your inventory. Number 1, I wrote down is time management. Time management. What do you do during the day? Are you actively going out and talking to a homeowner or no? Are you negotiating a contract or no? Are you doing lead follow-up or no? Are you on a presentation or no? There's only a handful of things that you do as an agent that generates income. There's 2 different types of activities: income generating, income servicing. A lot of agents spend way too much time income servicing, and they don't generate enough income. Okay? So here are the few things that should be the major priority in your schedule. Okay? Some of the biggest things: Number one is lead generation. That's the number one thing. Number two, lead follow-up. Number three should be pre-qualifying sellers. In other words, finding out whether they have the motivation to move or not. Number four should be going on presentations. And then number five should be negotiating contracts. If you're spending 6 or 7 hours a day doing that, but let's say you spend just 6 hours a day doing those few things, nothing else, 6 hours a day, you're still working a part-time job. That's part-time, folks. How many of you had a full-time job before you got into real estate? Did you work more than 6 hours? If you worked 6 hours on just those things and you were really tight on your schedule about it, folks, you could be making $500,000 a year or more. We find that with our top producers every day. Time management, skill number one. Skill number two, I want you to write down the old Mike Ferry favorite, prospecting. Going out and talking to people. It is a skill. Can you get past the introduction? Can you get past a reflex no? Can you get into the conversation and get the seller to open up and talk to you about their situation? Those are skills that we learn. So part of the partnership that Signature has entered in is that we get to do these types of trainings with you guys once a quarter. One of the trainings I plan to do with you guys at some point is going to be how to refine your prospecting skills. Just some very basic things that you can do that's going to set you apart from everybody else who prospects. So prospecting, skill number two. Skill number three I want you to write down is versatility. Versatility is one of my all-time favorite ones because that's the ability to adapt to different personalities. Ask yourself a simple question. How many people are just like you? And I mean same personality, same viewpoints on life, like the same sports teams, like everything. Not too many. Most of us are pretty unique. Remember in school when everyone told us, you're unique, you're special. Just keep being you. Unfortunately, as a salesperson, that thought makes us poor. Here's why. Because if you can't adapt to the way other people speak, you're never going to make a connection with them. And making that connection is one of the biggest decision factors when it comes to who they list their home with. They got to feel good about you. They got to feel comfortable with you. They got to really believe that you can get the job done. They can't do that if you aren't versatile with them. They won't believe in you until they feel like, wow, you got me. Yeah, it makes sense that you could get somebody else. Versatility is that ability to change the way that you speak, change the way that you communicate to all people. Here are some signs that you lack versatility. Some signs that you lack versatility is you're constantly offended. Being offended means you're putting your opinion in front of the opinion of the person that you're speaking to. In sales, can't afford that. Now, that doesn't mean you have to do business with everybody. Don't get me wrong. You still have the right to choose who you want to do business with. You have some that you just know that it's not going to be a good relationship. Don't do business with them. That's okay. Versatility is at least opening up the dialogue enough that we can make that decision for ourselves. A lot of people don't even get there. A lot of people just cannot communicate with someone, and then when the person is flustered, that's when they get offended. Now, another sign that we're lacking versatility, I want you to write down, I have to do things my way. That's a big sign of a lack of versatility. Folks, do you think every homeowner wants to do things your way? Do you think your way is the only way to sell a home? Do you think your way is the only way things can be done? All of that is ego-based. We've got to learn to let go of that. Another sign of a lack of versatility is you just simply don't believe something can work. You don't believe it. Okay, if you don't believe it, of course it's not going to happen. You got to learn to think past that and start thinking, okay, somehow there's a way to do this. Let's figure it out. Somehow there's a way to make this work. Let's figure it out. Versatility is that ability to adapt. That leads me to skill number 4. I want you to write down is lead follow-up. Question for you. There's two sides of lead follow-up that people need to work on for the most part in the real estate business. There's a ton of different issues that happen in lead follow-up, but these are the two that stand out the most when I'm speaking to agents. Number 1 is agents simply don't do it. They get a lead and they think, oh, I don't want to bother them. I don't want to sound pushy. I don't want to interrupt them. And they hesitate too much. So again, question for some of you who've been in the business for a bit. Have you ever hesitated on a lead and then you found out they listed with someone else or they bought with someone else? That sting rings. I mean, that sting hurts when you see that. I can't tell you how many times that's bothered me where I'm like, I'm working with someone, I get busy, I put them off for a little bit, and then I find out they listed with someone else because I blew it. Not because they weren't ready, because I blew it. So, has that ever happened to you? If it has, you've got to start buckling down on your lead follow-up. The other side that I've seen happen is that real estate agents will hold on to their leads for way too long. I spoke with an agent, I want to say last week, and I had to help her throw away some of her leads because she's been hanging on to them for too long. One of the leads she's been hanging on to, she has been talking to this person about listing his home since 2017. She only sells 4 or 5 homes a year, but she's been talking to the same guy for 6 years? That doesn't make a lot of sense. Every now and then I'll run what we call our prospecting clinics here at the Mike Ferry organization. That's where we invite agents from all over the country to come down to our headquarters, and we will help them do their prospecting. They're going to get on the phone, they're going to make their calls. One of us, who's Mike Ferry trained, will be on headphones listening to them do their calls. Then we'll give them some coaching and some training afterward. There was a young lady who brought in this big suitcase to the program, and I was wondering why she brought a suitcase. She opened it up, and all of it was filled with leads. I'm like, did you buy all of these? Like, where did you find all of these? She's like, oh, these are all my leads for the last 6 years. I said, for the last how long? 6 years. She's just holding on the names and phone numbers. So I did something that made her very uncomfortable. She was very mad at me, but then she thanked me later. I said, okay, I want you to pull out everything that's older than 6 months. So she pulls out everything that's older than 6 months. Her 6-month pile was still about this thick of paper. I took that whole group of people that are 6 months and over, and I threw the whole thing in the garbage. I brought a big, huge trash can and threw it all in there. And she got mad. She got really mad at me. I said, hey, I'm trying to help you out here. So I pulled one of them out. I said, let's look this one up on the MLS. We looked it up. That thing listed and sold 2 years ago. But she was hanging on to the lead. Folks, don't hang on to your leads for too long. They get in the way of the good ones. That leads me to skill number 5. We've talked a bit about it already. I want you to write down pre-qualifying. Pre-qualifying for motivation. In other words, we got to find out if the seller has the ability to sell their home. Big objections that we're getting right now. If you don't pre-qualify, you can't nip this one in the bud. Big objection right now is if I don't get my price, I'm not selling. There's a lot of homeowners that were some of those post-COVID homeowners who want to sell their home only if they get the price from 2 years ago or from a year ago. Not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Sure, inventory is low and everything, and prices are holding pretty firm, but someone who was listed at $600,000 last year, they're not going to get $600,000 this year. It's just not happening. The prices have decreased a little bit. If you're watching the market, yeah, everything that's like 550, or excuse me, not 550, like 450 and under, selling super quick. You start getting to the 600 range, 700 range, 800 range, those are taking a lot more time. Unless they're priced very, very well, the price per square foot is very strong. Most of those are taking a lot of time. With the interest rate hike, just less people can afford those homes. So there are people right now who say, no, I'm not gonna sell my home unless I get this price. And you find out, pre-qualifying is finding out why do you need to move, how soon do you need to be out of the home, what needs to get done, and we go through the whole thing. If the reasons just aren't there, there's no reason for them to list their home. They're not going to get the price they want. And If they don't sell it, they're just going to stay in it until prices get higher. What can we do about that? Pre-qualifying helps us find those people before we go on the presentation. So if we find someone that's like that before the presentation, okay, we don't need to go on the presentation. We can cancel it. Or you can do what I like to do and just refer it to an agent you don't like so they suffer instead of you. So start looking for the motivation. Why does somebody have to move? What is the purpose of it? That way when you show up and you can have a real discussion with them, we can find out what's the best solution. If you don't know what the homeowner needs, how do you know you can deliver it to them? Sure, they may say they're interested in selling their home. Do they need to? If they don't need to, they probably won't. Okay, think of some of the reasons why someone needs to sell. Okay, financial issues, divorce, marriage, they had twins and they need more space, or whatever it could be, job transfer, anything that it could be. Well, those are the reasons why people need to sell. Look for the people that are in that situation. This is a misconception about prospecting. A lot of people think prospecting is trying to convince someone to list their home. That's not what prospecting is. Prospecting is finding someone who says they need to find someone. That's why there's so much rejection. Most people don't need to sell their home this year. That's okay. That's totally fine. So you call and you call and you call, or you door knock, or you talk to your people that you know. You do all of that stuff to find someone who needs the service. Then once they say they are interested, you pre-qualify them to find out, do they really need the service, or should I recommend that they stay in the home? Do what's best for the client. That leads to number 6. Skill number 6 I want you to write down is the listing presentation. Folks, your listing presentation has to be bulletproof. This is a highly competitive market. I can guarantee you, a lot of the people that you are going to go and do a presentation for, they are talking to more than one agent. Folks, if they're talking to more than one agent, you got to be better than whoever else that they're speaking to. If you're not better than that person, they're going to go with that person. I want you to consider this for a second. Every single transaction you have ever done is also in someone else's database. Someone else that's a real estate agent knows them. You got the deal because you were better than that person at that time. In today's market, it's so competitive, your presentation has to be amazing. They should want to stand up and clap for you and hand you an Academy Award and say, thank you, that was quite a performance. That's how good you need to be at it. Question is, if you're not that good yet, what can you do to improve? Start looking for ways to improve. Record your presentation. Have mastermind groups where you guys share the recordings with each other. Work on the timing, work on the pacing, work on the body language. Work on all that stuff and you're going to see yourself getting better. Now that is coupled with a very close skill. I want you to write down pricing property. That one is number 7. Pricing property is number 7. The listing presentation and pricing property are basically hand in hand right now. Question is, how do you present the price in a way that the seller understands? Typically, sellers are somewhere between 3 to 9 months behind in terms of what's happening in the real estate market, which means some of them will be catching up soon, which is great. But a lot of them are still in fantasy land. I mean, how many times have you guys heard somebody say lately, well, my friend sold last year and they got blah for their price? Okay, homeowners don't know. So the question is, how do you convey the price of them? A couple of thoughts on this I want you to consider is become a market expert. And I mean an expert. You should know all the different pockets in this area or in this city. You should know who the builders are. You should know roughly how many, what's the difference between a home that's upgraded versus an older one that's in the original condition. You should know a lot of that stuff. You should be paying attention to a lot of that stuff. If you don't know the different areas, go and preview property once or twice a week. Go out and see them. How better to become an expert than to go out and experience it yourself? Okay, and then if once you've done that, spend half an hour to an hour every day checking out the MLS, looking what kinds of homes are for sale in what areas, what the current price ranges are, what price ranges are selling, what price ranges aren't. You become a very strong market expert. Then when you do your CMA, you can come up with a price that makes sense. I've seen some people really screw up some CMAs. But if you're very good at understanding what's happening in the market, you can put together a very strong CMA, one that makes a lot of sense. Then when you're presenting the price to the seller, you present it with power, with volition, with knowledge. Then they will believe you. It's all included in the Mike Ferry script, like I said, which is all online for free. So you learn the presentation skills and you couple that with presenting the price very well, and you find a lot of things start to happen in your favor. They don't like the new price, but they believe you and they're willing to go your direction. Now, once you've done a great presentation, they agree on the price, I want you to write down skill number 8 is closing. Closing. Asking somebody for the sale. Asking them to sign a contract. You ask them to sign a contract, there's a better chance that they will. Okay? I have this on my hand. Okay? I had to ask to see if this was okay with her. I had to handle some objections, but we got there. You have to ask to get somebody to commit to do something. We're talking about some of the biggest financial commitments people are going to make for their entire life. If you just do your presentation and be like, well, what do you think? Sound good? That's not a close. A close is a natural ending to a great presentation, which means after you've gone through your presentation, you present the price, what price do you think we should list your home at in order to create value in the eyes of a buyer? They're going to say a price. Well, based on what we've talked about tonight, I'm going to recommend a price of blank. Will you list your home with me for that price tonight? That's a close. It's so simple. That's all we're asking to do. Great. Then all we need to do now is simply sign the contract so I can help you get what you want in the time you want. Won't that be great? Go ahead and sign the contract, please. A close is asking someone, will you sign the contract, please? An exercise that we like to do for fun in some of our seminars is we'll have everybody say, will you sign the contract, please? And we'll have them all say it together. And then we'll ask something like, okay, now that we've said it, did anybody pass out? Anybody faint because it was too hard for them to do that? You'll find that closing is easy. Look at all the steps we did before we closed. We found the lead. We were versatile with them. We followed up on the lead. We pre-qualified the lead. We did a great presentation. We talked about the price in a way that they understand. When you close, it should be easy. You don't need thousands of trick closes. You don't need a whole bunch of witty things to say in order to get them to close. You just need to ask for the order. Now, there are going to be times when you ask for the order and they have an objection, which leads to number 9. Number 9 is handling objections. How do you handle the common objections that we get? Now, a key thing here, when I talk about handling objections, a lot of people get really hyper. They say, well, what I'm hearing is, and we'll role play it out, and they'll just keep hitting me with the same thing over and over again. What that tells me is that person did not pre-qualify, that person didn't do a great listing presentation, that person did not show or convey the price in the right way. If you do those things, handling objections is really easy. If you're not doing those things, the objections become the focal point of the entire presentation. You don't want that. What you want is a great presentation so that most of the objections go away. However, if you do get a few objections, it's typically because the presentation didn't answer something in their mind, or when you presented the price, you didn't do a great job of it. Maybe you missed something when you were pre-qualifying them. But if you know all that stuff going in, the couple of objections that they give you, pretty easy. Like commission. Okay, one of my favorite ones is, will you cut your commission? No. Any other questions? Well, this other agent said they would. I can appreciate that. Now, can I tell you why that worries me? If the other agent couldn't stand up to you regarding their own worth, what makes you think they're going to be able to defend your equity against someone tough like me? Do you feel I can sell your home? Yes. Do you know that I'm going to stand strong for your price? Yes. Then go ahead and sign the contract, please. That's simple. Well, the other agent, they really said that they would, I like you and I like this, but I just don't want to pay that much in commission. Mr. Seller, if they want to cut their own commission, what makes you think they're not going to do the same thing when it comes to your equity? Aren't they going to do that same thing to you that they just did to themselves? Do you want someone strong, yes or no? Yes. Sign the contract, please. I will defend your equity. Okay? And all of that starts to make sense for them. Now, if you do all of these steps, you're going to list property. All of these 9 skills, if you focus on these, you're going to list property. Okay? That's essentially what I had for you guys today. I hope this has been helpful for you. If you guys have any questions, feel free to jump in and ask in the chat or anything. Any questions for me? Going once, going twice. All right. Well, I hope this was helpful for all of you. Thank you guys for being here. Chris, Brandon, if someone wants to finish off the meeting, thank you guys for having me on.